Hello everyone, I'm Coach Ognen and you're watching Athlete Support. Today's special guest is Jean Spies. Jean Spies is track cyclist and 2-time Olympian. Hi Jean, how are you?
Hi Ognen, good, thanks, and you?
Excellent. Jean, thank you so much for being here, and I would like to start by asking you how did you start with cycling and how did that lead to track cycling?
Cool, thanks for having me. So I started cycling at the age of 6 years old. Well, actually before that, but started racing at the age of 6 years old. Started as a mountain biker and then progressed from mountain bike through the mountain bike disciplines, downhill and cross country. And then went onto the road. And then a friend of my dad's was actually throwing out a track bike and got my hands on that, and Dad took me to the track, and as they say, the rest was history. I fell in love with track cycling in itself. I raced competitively on all three disciplines still for a really long time, and then only in 2017 did I transition entirely through to sprint and keirin, so only track cycling and only sprint events.
Perfect. Jean, I remember when I was a child, first time watching track cycling and noticing Velodrome, and to me that was impressive, seeing this incredible structure, seeing people with these funky helmets, and for some reason my mind connected it with the Tron movie. I think back then Tron movie was very popular and all kids were like, wow, look at that. And I would like to ask you, what was your mindset stepping into Velodrome for the first time, getting ready to compete in track cycling and taking in the surrounding, taking in your competitors? What was your mindset thinking, okay, I'm going to compete at this incredible structure with these incredible athletes? Like our tracks here in South Africa are not as wow as the international ones, those that are seen on TV, but we do have some decent facilities, and for me it was kind of a natural progression from the age of 14, kind of going through the ranks and seeing the equipment and all the rest of it. But my first big international competition was quite a scary one. You know, you kind of feel like you're treading water and somebody's not just throwing you in the deep end but throwing you in the ocean. But you know, that's part of the process and part of life. You have to kind of Where was it?
So my first big, well, I wouldn't say my first, yeah, my first big one is 2010 in China in the Beijing Velodromes, the same one that they used for the Beijing Olympic Games. And yeah, I went as Team South Africa. We did I was still racing endurance. I did the events called the Team Sprint, Team Pursuit, which is a 4-kilometer team event, and then the Madison, which is a 50-kilometer hand sling race, almost like a relay, but the relay is a bit on steroids.
Talking about Beijing and talking about those incredible structures and still staying with that subject, do you feel that entering such a massive place plays a role over and above? Okay, you have incredible competitors, you prepared for it, but do you feel like, you know, gladiators in olden days, and you have these colosseums which is maximizing the size of the spectators, do you feel that has an extra boost that fuels you even more?
I think it definitely does have an impact to a person's psychology within the sport, or any sport for that matter. Obviously, yes, there are events, for example, the Olympics, that is that much bigger. You know, you kind of walk in there and you're just like, wow, this is my sport, but just on steroids. But in general, I think there's definitely a big impact to it. Obviously, the more exposure you get to high-level competition, the more it becomes the norm. And I think ultimately, as people, we don't rise to the occasion, we settle to our norms. So if your norm is at that level, then it becomes just part of the everyday, and you're ready to compete at your best capabilities in that environment.
Perfect. Just to take it a little bit back again, when you first decided, and I've know a little bit about that, that you're going to be an Olympian, you were still a kid. Will you tell us about that first impression with watching TV? How did that start? So
I remember I was still at school. I went to a swimming coach's house, and we were training there, and they had the Sydney Olympics, the opening ceremony on TV, and the thought was, I want to walk into that stadium as an Olympian. Unfortunately, I still haven't had the opportunity to do an opening ceremony, but I've had 2 closing ceremonies, and yeah, it's just kind of been I wouldn't say a whirlwind, it's a difficult one, because life happens, you know, sport kind of goes up and down, life goes up and down, and you almost lose track of those little images as a child. And yeah, I'm fortunate enough to be one of the very few in the world to realize that dream of a little kid that wanted to become an Olympian.
And then you lived that dream twice over.
Yeah.
Will you tell us the lead-up experience getting to your first Olympics, and what was your mindset? What was your competition and striving towards that goal? Were you completely immersed into that goal, or were you just saying, okay, I'm gonna take it one step at a time and see what happens? Or was that goal just there and wanting it, or just enjoying the
I jumped into the deep end and I just drowned in it. It's probably the easiest way to explain it. 2017, I made the decision to go for Tokyo Olympics, and basically I didn't have any funding, I didn't have any support structure from cycling in South Africa, and a friend of mine was like, well, this is your dream, let's get going, and we did it ourselves. We crowdfunded the whole way through, and yeah, just got it done. The qualification process for us is quite difficult. You have to actually be ranked within the top 32 in the world over a 2-year period before the Olympics. So it consisted of a lot of traveling, a lot of racing, and a lot going through. And then obviously COVID happened, so to put into perspective, a cyclist or a professional inverted commas, but an Olympian's kind of lifestyle, COVID happened and my life didn't change at all. I still had a normal day, in essence, got up, went and trained, had lunch, went and trained again, had dinner and went to sleep. I was fortunate enough to live in Switzerland for my Olympic Games preparation over the last year of preparation, and I stayed with what they call the World Cycling Center. So it's an infrastructure designed to help cyclists that are at that level, that are preparing for the Games or for World Championships, that do not have a structure behind them. Unfortunately, it's very far and few in between athletes that actually get those opportunities. I was fortunate enough to do that, but yeah, preparation for me didn't change much through COVID, and then yeah, when we got to Tokyo, it was a big wow moment, and then it's like, okay, let's get this job done, because it's, you know, you walk into the Velodrome or you walk into any arena at an Olympic Games, everything feels so much bigger and so much more, such a big emphasis on the sport. But for me, it was like, there was small goals that I'd set. It wasn't a case of like I wanted a result. A result was like, yes, that would be amazing, but I wanted to do sub 10 seconds in my 200. I wanted to have a good Kieran, and yeah, those were the goals that I had, and I reached those goals. So 100% success rate for my Olympics.
I want to ask you something. When you were talking about lots of traveling, and I know this pops up all the time with the athletes, and I want to find out your mindset on it. When you travel a lot and you change time zones, and you're not just changing time zones, cultures, food, how do you keep track of what, all right, these are the type of foods and tastes that you as a professional athlete are accustomed to? So how do you keep track of your nutrition? How do you keep track of your mindset changing through time zones and stay on track? And I don't mean track as in cycling track, but staying on track mentally with all these changes and keeping the pace. So
to put into perspective how much traveling, 2018 and 2019 I visited 35 countries in both years, and then even through COVID 2020 I still did 9 countries while the whole world wasn't shut down. But reality is, it's like it just becomes a norm. You know, people commute to work every day. You know, whether it be if you're in Europe, you're on a bus or on a train or whatever. If you're in South Africa, you're in your car and you're sitting in traffic. Flying is the same thing. You know, it's a big glorified bus that's just taking us from one destination to the other. So for me, it just became a norm, and it became a thing of like, I need to do this to get it done. And yeah, it just became a comfortable environment. If I had to look at, for example, the food and stuff, for the most part, I try to keep it simple and try to keep it same. If I, for example, had to go to an Asian country that food is all like exotic to us, I would try and find the most Western restaurant I could possibly find.
Not McDonald's.
No, we'd avoid McDonald's. So it'll be like a pasta house or something like that, and I would literally order the same thing on the menu every single day, because then I knew it was safe. I knew, like, obviously you kind of don't want to have any issues. So for that point, I just kind of made sure that it was that one, and that I knew throughout that trip that would be fine. As boring as that sounds, it works. And then so I'll always carry, for example, a bag of oats with me in the morning. Oats with me wherever I travel. So again, I can have oats pretty much a norm, although oats is readily available throughout the world. But again, it's just making sure, at least, I mean, if you're landing at 10 p.m. the next morning, you need food, so there is food in my bag. But yeah, it was a case of like just getting those little things in order. If I had to look at the mental part of it, to be honest with you, it's not, I'm going to say it's not easy to answer, but it's probably the easiest answer is like I didn't think about it. I was there to race my bike. I loved racing my bike, so it was like, cool, we're just here on another adventure and we're going to go in circles. So let's go fast.
So that's the purpose, that's the objective, and that's the simplest thing. I'm going there to do something and I'm doing it. And that's
it. Exactly that, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Please tell us about your experience between your Tokyo Olympics and your Paris Olympics.
Unfortunately, Paris was not fantastic for me. Tokyo, like I said, I had great opportunity to train at the UCI or at the World Cycling Center, and it was a really kind of like, I'm going to say, not pampered, but it was a pampered situation for me, where Paris, myself and Bridget literally did it ourselves. There was no support, there was no structure. It was a case of like, can I sleep on somebody's couch to get to this event? Can I sleep on somebody's couch to do this training X, Y, Z? Got the qualification done, which was great, and then started the last kind of big push for training, and it went really well. I was kind of, I was flying, and then kind of the wheels fell off really hard 3 weeks before the Olympics. I had a big crash at 80 kilometers an hour. So then it became a question of, can I actually get to the Olympics? Can I get a medical clearance before the games? And that became the biggest kind of objective 3 weeks leading towards the games. And then at the games, obviously you knew where you were and you knew what you could have done, but you're not at the level, and that mentally really sucked, and that was really difficult. But at the same time, it was the Olympics. I wasn't going to give it up. I'd worked really hard for that point and that to be there. So I was going to give it as much as what I possibly could. And in all honesty, the Olympics is just, as I keep saying, it's huge. But if I took the results, or I took the times that I did at the Olympics, if it was any other event, it would have been fine. I would have been happy with it. But because it was the Olympics, it was almost a disappointment to do that, knowing what I could have done or what I should have done. But that's part of life. You know, we're not always growing vertically, or you kind of have these horizontal growths that you're building a foundation for you as a person. And yes, you're going to question it, but that's part of life and that's part of the process. Yeah.
Well, you talked about the injury. Can you tell us what happened at 80 k's an hour? And
so we were doing a training session or a training thing called the motor chase. So we literally have a motorbike on the track, and the motorbike accelerates as hard as he can, or not as hard as he can, but accelerates really hard. And we try and chase the motorbike. So we're sitting really close to the motorbike, and it just draws us up to speed. So you're at race pace with the help of a motorbike. And yeah, in the apex of the corner, my rear wheel blew, so the tire popped, and basically just kind of from there I was leaning left and then leaning a little further left and hit the ground and just kind of stuck. So yeah.
And what was your psychological process? Yes, you have a physical injury, the impact, the pain, but what is your psychological process of saying, I can do this, I can still get back on track, I can go to Olympics? What is the mindset that keeps you driving, striving, and going, that's one thing, I'm sorted, I have a team, they'll help me out physically, but what is the mindset of getting back competition and going back to, okay, I'm gonna compete now?
So if I take from the point of injury, getting up off the track, you kind of go, okay, this is a problem, and then from there it was a case of let's just get this clean. The biggest concern was obviously getting infection and stuff like that, so it was really a case of having to look after these things really well, and I'm grateful for the people and the team that I had around me to do that. But from a mental aspect, it was literally just a case of like I needed to get better. Like that was the biggest thing. Just taking it one day at a time, one step at a time. Yes, like for normal people, I guess you would take your time. Athletes don't have the patience and don't have the time to take. So literally to try and grow new skin within 10 days, it takes a lot of work. And yeah, we got it done. Obviously there's the injuries inside that take a long time, which you can't really rush. But mentally it's just more a case of like, this is unfortunate, this is part of life, this is part of the risks that I take on a daily basis, so it's a consequence thereof, and let's get going. You know, let's take on the process and see where we can get at the end of the day.
You talk about the team. How important is your team, and what does it consist of? The people, we see the athlete, but we never see, as spectators, we don't see people behind the scenes.
So my team is minute compared to the rest of the world. Like if I had to use, for example, the GB athletes, GB squads or team generally work on a two staff to one athlete ratio, whereas I work on a 1-to-1 ratio. So I've only got Bridget who works with me, but that's on at the racing events or stuff like that. Outside of that, so for example, Bridget's family helped with the injuries. They're all paramedics, so it was the right people at the right time. Sean is one of those that'll help me with my bike, etc., equipment, all the rest of it. But from a racing perspective, Bridget is the person that is there for me, and yeah, on and off the track. We've been working together for the last 8 years now, and to be honest, there's no ways that this would happen without them. Reality is what's the saying? It takes a village to raise a kid, and that's what sport is like. You know, you cannot do this on your own. You cannot reach those milestones, because I'm going to say yes, mentally it is a real challenge, but every now and again you need somebody to give you a kick up the butt and go, you're fooling around, or you're not, or you're being too hard on yourself, or you're not. But then it's, you know, that aside, looking at from an event perspective, you need the people to be able to kind of rely on and make sure that you're okay. You know, whether it be making sure that I'm eating enough, or making sure that I'm getting the right nutrition in at the event. You know, yes, you've got a lot of stress, but you need to, these things are on top of that. And then looking after travel, looking after me as an athlete, you know, making sure that the legs are fresh, massage, recovery, all that type of stuff it's a lot to take on your own. So ideally you need somebody to help with that. And I want to say South Africans are very when I say withdrawn with that, you know, we always want to do it on our own, and we're very skeptical of having other people to help. But reality is we're not going to do it if we do not have the help around us. Again, you look at a rugby team, we can look at the top level in South Africa. So you look at the Springboks. I'd love to know how many staff they've got, but they have a lot. You know, and even if you had to look at club rugby, there's help there, there's coaches, there's staff, there's all these things. So as an individual athlete, it is an aspect that is really needed.
I've seen you often train, and for viewers who don't know, I'm talking about not the skill training, your strength and conditioning strength training, to be specific. And it's beauty to observe, and like as a coach I always go, wow, seeing a super athlete training and being lost in that moment is incredible for me. And we talked about the supporting team. How important is supplementing strength training with your skill training?
You will never reach the potential of what you can do without the strength training. That's pretty much the be-all and end-all of it. Strength and conditioning is the foundation of all sport. You know, I have had the privilege over the last couple of weeks to be training with strongmen, and we were actually having a conversation last night. Now, one of the boys weighs 170 kilos. He can move a monster. He is just a huge specimen. but the conversation was, you know, like you look at strongmen and it's like, oh, he's a strongman. It's like, no, he's just a big athlete. You know, the man was doing a sled pull 500 kilograms last night. You know, like,
that's crazy.
It's not just a case of like, I'm gonna move this weight. It's I'm gonna move this weight really fast. So in that sense, it's like, if you take that into normal sport, it's the same principle. The more strength you've got and the more transfer you can get into the sport, the faster you will become. If you had to look at injuries as well, it's injury prevention throughout any sport and every sport. So yeah, it's vital. I think at this point in my, not in my career, but at this point in my my process right now, the strength training is 90% of what I do. Track training or bike training it's not on an afterburner. It's just one of those that I know I need to make sure that the strength is up and the conditioning is up, and then I can transfer it onto the bike and then we'll become faster. So yeah, it is the fundamental of what I do. It's the fundamental of all sports. So if there's anybody that's ever doubting doing strength training or conditioning, go and do it. Like, that is your bread and butter.
Thank you for that, because there are a lot of athletes here who say, well, it's strength training, conditioning training is not that important. I just need to be very good with my skill, and that's all. And I'm like, yeah, it's like you can never be strong enough, because your absolute strength transfers to your power, and if your sport is, you need power or power endurance, you need that strength.
Exactly.
So that mindset, and I think that's also part of that South African mindset that I've also encountered, where you're going like, no, you need a team, you need this, you need that, and people go like, no, that's just too many obstacles. And like, that mindset needs to change, because we are competing against teams and peoples and individuals in sports where competition is tighter, it's faster, and if you're left behind, you're never gonna catch that up.
Exactly, yeah.
I'll now ask you a couple of more questions.
Of course.
What is next for you?
So next for me is, I'm gonna say not much has changed, but a lot is changing. I still love riding my bike. I'm still gonna race my bike as much as possible. I've done 2 Olympic Games. To be honest, Paris happened by mistake. It was literally one of those where I got halfway through the season, or halfway through what I was doing, and I was halfway through the Olympic qualification going, okay, I could actually qualify. So we just kind of continued the process. But there is a racing series called Derby Wheel Pro Keirin, which is supposed to start now in January, and that'll be my next focus. It is a breakaway from all normal track cycling races, so breakaway from the UCI, which is the Union International Cyclist. It's a French word, so basically the French Union. It's the cycling union for the entire world. It's a breakaway from that. For the viewers that watch or follow golf, it's basically like Live Golf going, we're going to pull away from PGA. So something like that. So that is going to be my next focus. I'd still like to race the UCI racing, although the UCI is threatening to ban all athletes that do Derby wheel racing. But at this point in my career, it doesn't.
Very political.
It is very political. It doesn't make sense to me why they're being political. But as an athlete, it makes sense to be able to do Derby wheel. There's more value in it for the athletes. So I know of quite a lot of riders that I compete against on a weekly basis that are going, we'd rather be doing that. So yeah, it's a project that's coming off the ground. So obviously it has its teething issues, but hopefully it kind of gets all of that sorted very quickly and we can get going. Thank you very much.
And one more question: is there anything else that you would like to say or cover before we finish?
If there's one thing that I could say to any aspiring athlete, and obviously I say athlete because it's anybody and everybody, would be get on with it. You know, you're not going to be saved by mom and dad. You're not going to be saved by a system that's going to pay for X, Y, Z. Find a way to do and find a way to make that dream a reality. You know, we as people are not stuck, but yet we feel that there are these limitations, and those limitations are as much as we make them out to be. So definitely find a way to fund it, or find a way to get to that next level, and just keep working at it. It doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't come easily. You know, the emotions that go with all of the hard work and the frustrations, but at the end of the day, how badly do you want to get to that goal, how badly do you want to get to that dream. It's going to cost you everything, but you'll be happy doing so in the end.
I want to add to that. You said something very important that begs another question, a bonus one, an observation from my side. One of my Olympians said to me, I met this kid. He said, I've never met an Olympian before. And he said, I'm an Olympian. Just a conversation came about. And the kid looked at him with the big eyes, and he couldn't believe it. He said, I don't believe you. He says, yeah, I'm an Olympian. And through conversation, what he found out was the child is growing up in the mindset that it's not possible to meet an Olympian, and it's not possible to be an Olympian. That these are superhumans, and I'm not going to dispute the superhuman fact. We often say we're different from the normal people, and then there's us. But on the other hand is, what do we do to go and talk to people, kids who have aspiration, and tell them, you can be me, but you need to work towards it. We need to be able to encourage them, not just be on a TV and there's an image on a TV and it's unattainable. And I almost feel, okay, if we think that, then you already know that. But sometimes there is a little bit of a psychology behind where a kid can be that. What do you have to say to that? And how do we reach out to the people?
I quite like that. You know, if you, for example, take cricket or rugby or football, we all know who these people are. You know, there's been this big emphasis on social media, on everything. The whole country knows who Cyclist is. Like, yes. That's just what it is. We do not have that for any of our Olympians unless they've medaled, and specifically unless they've gotten a gold medal, which is a sad thing. Reality is our athletes have put in the work every single day for the last 4, 8, 12 years to get to that point, and it's been unseen. So in that sense it sucks. But reality with life is every single person carries a unique journey, but also carries a unique gift. So, you know, if you go out onto the street and literally the next person you bumped into, if you dig deep enough, you are going to find an amazing story. Whether it be an Olympian, whether it be somebody that's climbed Kilimanjaro, whether it's kind of overcome an illness or a mental illness or something like that, somebody's got every single person has a great story. So for us as people, I think we need to dig more. You know, it's not just a case of like, oh, these people, these Olympians are just unique people that you'll never see, that you never interact with. I think it's one of those that it's not exposed. You know, I can bump into you on the side of the road, or I can bump into you. I mean, I've known you for the last 5 years, and you know, it's only recently that I've known you've gone to the Olympics, which, you know, it just shows you it's normal people, it's everyday people that have these unique things. It's not, being an Olympian is not your be all and end all. It's not like this big banner that we carry. We are normal people that are human. And I think from a human touch perspective, I think that is where we will grow as people and grow as a population, is actually having that sensitive side to go, hey, Ogden, who are you? What have you done? How are you? Like, you know, who are you as a person, not just who are you as a what is your occupation. And I think in that sense, those amazing stories will carry to the next generation. Connecting. Yes.
Jean, thank you so much. Really enjoyed this interview, and I'm sure everyone watching this will love it. Thank you so much, and I'm wishing you all the best with your future endeavor, and we hope that there's not going to be any politics between two bodies, and that's going to be sorted.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Jean.